Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we are moving right through our lineup prediction series here for the 2021-2022 NHL season, going into opening night in New Jersey. What will be the New Jersey Devils starting lineup going into this year? So we'll be taking a look at the Devils in today's video. So starting off with the Devils forward group, but the overall picture of the New Jersey Devils, they made a couple of pretty big moves this summer. They made a pretty big trade. They made two fairly big free agent signings, and they also have another top 5 draft pick. So a couple of these moves are really going to help this team move forward this season. And I don't necessarily, we'll talk about it at the end of the video, what I think the outcome of this season will be for the Devils. But there is definitely reasons to be, at the very least, optimistic for the Devils. So let's get right into it. So like I said, looking at the forward lines, as we always do, make sure to check out our other videos in this series. You're looking at the top 6. You have Tomas Tatar, Nico Hischier, and Yegor Sharangovich as your top line. Nico Hischier, obviously the captain of this team, a crucial part of this team that they were missing for a large portion of last season. Now, he was obviously named captain during training camp or the beginning, maybe the first game of the season. And he really had a lot of injury issues last year. So you're hoping going into this season that he will be more healthy. He could maybe play a full 82-game schedule at the very least, hopefully. And I think that's really a key factor for the Devils, is just having him in the lineup for the entirety of the season. Now, again, there may be some lingering effects as well, but again, he was one of those players during the pandemic that really had some issues. So hopefully he is back and healthy in year 2 of his captaincy. Tomas Tatar comes in, a later free agent signing, but one of the bigger names left off the board over the last couple of, throughout the first week of free agency. He was a fairly big name plucked up. He's one of those guys, I talked about that in his signing video, but I mentioned that Tatar is a guy that's going to help you get close or into the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's not necessarily a playoff performer, but for the Devils, all they want is a chance and a ticket to the dance to begin with. So I think they're going to make some strides, especially a team that is, no discredit to their wingers, but they need more wingers. And I think a guy like Tatar definitely comes in at a little bit of a high number in terms of salary, but overall a great player in that room. Yegor Sharangovich had a breakout season last year. Expect him to continue to do those things. And again, with the lack of depth in the lineup, he can solidify himself in that top 6 once again this year, playing alongside some pretty talented guys there. The second line, you got Yanni Kuokkanen, Jack Hughes, and Jesper Bratt. Now, Yanni Kuokkanen, another name kind of like Sharangovich, who kind of came out of nowhere last season. I'm expecting him to be another big contributor to this team. Jesper Bratt is a guy, he had his moments last season. It's consistency. That's really the big thing with Bratt. So I'm expecting him to come back and have a really good year. And obviously, Jack Hughes, we saw him in year 2 definitely have a better year than his first season in the NHL, which you could have argued. I think he was a guy that probably should have gone back to the U.S. National Development Program. But the Devils really rushed him in. And I think this year is a really important year for Jack Hughes to build off of last season, keep that confidence going. Because pretty much right off the bat, especially with Hischier's injuries last season, he was forced to play more minutes than he probably should have. And I think at points that really did hurt his development. But I'm expecting good things from Jack Hughes this year. Going into the bottom 6, you got a mix of Miles Wood, Alexander Holtz, and Pavel Zacha. Now you got a couple of young guys here. Pavel Zacha played in the top 6 last year. I think they're going to try and spread the wealth and skill throughout the lineup this year. And I think moving him to the third line, he may not get the minutes or the points that he did last season, but I think he's going to be a more solid option down the middle. And, I hate to say it, this team is lacking a little bit down the middle. So a guy like Pavel Zacha definitely comes in and adds that little bit of punch on your third line. Alexander Holtz, this would obviously be his rookie season. He was a top 10 draft pick of the Devils, I believe in the 2019 draft, or even the 2020. I don't remember. One of those 2 drafts. So very exciting to see him finally come in. And they're expecting some good stuff from him. He's been playing in the SHO, if I'm not mistaken. So he's already been playing with men. So I think he's a guy that may be able to step into the lineup a little bit easier than maybe some of these other guys that I'll mention. And obviously Miles Wood had a little bit of a down season, so I'm expecting him to pick things up, kind of like Jesper Bratt. Looking at your fourth line, you have Jesper Boqvist, centered by guys like Andreas Johnson and Nolan Foote on the wings. Yes, Adam Foote's son and Cal Foote, the Tampa Bay Lightning defenseman's brother. We're going to see him get an opportunity, a big man there. You also have Andreas Johnson. We know he was a big sandpaper guy in Toronto. And, last season in New Jersey, didn't hear much about Andreas Johnson. I'm expecting more from him again this season. Looking at some of their depth guys on the forward side of things, you got Marian Studnick, Michael McLeod, AJ Greer, who is a New York native, and you also have Dawson Mercer. And I was talking about a guy like Alexander Holtz who could step into the lineup and play in the NHL. Dawson Mercer has spent some time in the OHL, in the Junior League, in the CHL. So he is going to probably need more time to develop. With that said, does he make the roster out of camp? I don't think so. I don't know if he gets sent back to juniors, though. So he may be a guy that he gets opportunities in the lineup, but it's one of those things where management's going to really have to decide, is it worth sending Dawson Mercer back to juniors or keeping him in the NHL this year and maybe exposing him to some things and making him maybe mature a little bit faster so he'll have a better year next year. That's kind of part of the development process that the Devils have to figure out, especially for Fitzgerald and the staff there. And again, if you know anything about Lindy Ruff, he is a guy that maybe doesn't play the young guys, so I would have some concern. If he did make the roster, he may not get enough ice time to continue to develop and build that confidence going into this season. Looking at your defensive depth, the Devils definitely made some upgrades in that category. A completely new top pairing of Ryan Graves and Dougie Hamilton. Dougie Hamilton was the big agent that was a big free agent, the big fish that was available this summer, and the New Jersey Devils, with their cap space, are able to pluck up the right shot defenseman. A huge addition to the Devils. There is some concern, especially on my end, as a guy that's making, $9.5 million per year. Is Dougie Hamilton really, really worth that? And I think we're going to start to see him in a team that's maybe not as good as where he's been in Carolina or Calgary or even Boston for that matter. He's going to be the number one guy this season, and we're going to really see his worth. You also have Ryan Graves as that more defensive-minded, big-body defenseman, which I think the Devils have been lacking a little bit. So I think adding a guy like Graves, that's a really nice shut-down defenseman there, especially with a guy like Hamilton, who is much more offensive-minded. And you're looking at the second pair, you got the second year of Ty Smith, a first-round pick of the Devils, and Damon Severson. Damon Severson has continued to stick around in Jersey. He's kind of floated around in terms of trade rumors, and every time I've heard that, I've said, why are they going to trade this guy? Well, he's made it around this long, and I think the Devils' need for more defensemen makes him pretty much untouchable. I think the Devils need to keep a guy like Damon Severson. He's just such a good defenseman when he's on his game. I'm one of those guys, a huge advocate for Severson, and it's huge that the Devils have been able to keep him. And obviously, year two of Ty Smith. Again, he's a top four defenseman at the very least. He may even take Ryan Graves' spot as the season goes along. But Ty Smith, a really good defenseman there. I'm really excited to see that pairing. And you also have Jonas Siegenthaler and PK Subban as my third pair. Jonas Siegenthaler was a guy that the Devils actually protected in the expansion draft over a guy like Nathan Bastian. So they really see something here in Jonas Siegenthaler, a guy that came over from the Hershey Bears organization and the Washington Capitals. So he's a guy, I've heard his name before. I'm really excited to see what he can do in New Jersey. If he could, replicate anything he did from last season, a great move there by the Devils. And obviously Subban, final year of his $9 million contract. So just really hasn't worked out. I really hope he bounces back in some form, but he is definitely in no way the player that he was just a few years back. And I think there's been some off-ice stuff, which I'm sure if you guys know anything about PK and his drama off the ice recently, unfortunately that's just... sometimes it just gets the best of you. So I'm really hoping for a comeback season from him. Maybe some of those distractions have gotten away from him. But there is definitely that for Subban. Looking at some of the depth defensemen who may be taking that spot from Subban or Siegenthaler. You have guys like Christian Yaros, who they bring in from Ottawa. You also have a guy in Kevin Ball, who we saw last season. He was a big part of that Taylor Hall trade a few years back. Just waiting for him to develop. Again, a guy like Ryan Graves, a big body shutdown defenseman. But the biggest concern about Kevin Ball's development has been his ability to keep up with the speed of the game and his feet and his skating ability. That is a big no for Kevin Ball at this point, but maybe he'll develop into a good bottom pairing shutdown defenseman. That's really what they're looking for there. And you also have Riley Walsh, who I've heard his name floated around recently. That's another name to also keep an eye on this week in training camp. With that said, the goaltending situation is pretty concrete. We know it's going to be probably Mackenzie Blackwood as the 1A goaltender and Jonathan Bernier as the 1B. I don't think it's a backup starter situation. I think it's very fluid. They paid Jonathan Bernier pretty good money to come to New Jersey. And I think ever since Corey Crawford left a couple years back and went into retirement and training camp with Jersey, it was quite clear that Blackwood needed some help. And especially last season with him getting COVID and just really struggling a little bit after that. He did turn it around toward the end of the season, so I expect him to be the starter opening night. But there's definitely going to be a point where Blackwood, you don't want him to burn out, and I think Devils fans really like what they see from him. They also have another guy in Nico Dawes, who is a really good goaltending prospect. We'll probably see in Binghamton. Are they in Binghamton anymore? Albany, with the Albany Devils. So I expect to see him in Albany this year. So if you're watching the Devils prospects, keep an eye on Nico Dawes up in Albany. So with that said, that is your New Jersey Devils lineup going into this year. For the most part, they've made some nice moves. I mean, I have to say, despite some of the guys they've lost specifically to the Islanders the last couple of years, guys like Travis Zajac, Kyle Palmieri, Andy Green, they've been able to keep this team together for the most part in terms of the core pieces, the Heishiers, the Hughes. Now we're even seeing guys like Severson and Ty Smith. Those guys are key pieces to this Devils team. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do this year. They're in a really tough Metropolitan Division this year. We could argue probably the toughest division on paper. So I don't see them making the playoffs, but this is another development year for some of those young guys. And you have some guys that can help build the base and allow these guys to develop, because you have Severson, you have Hamilton, you have Graves, you have Tomas Tatar. You have some guys around them to let them develop. Pavel Zacha. So I think this is a good opportunity for the Devils. Definitely going to be better than last season. I don't see them at the bottom of that division. I think they're going to be around teams like Columbus, potentially even Pittsburgh and Washington. They're in that little mix there. I think they're going to stay right around there and give themselves an opportunity probably till January or February. I think they're going to be in that mix. So let me know what you guys think down below. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, more videos just like this one, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time.